RetroBlasting is a YouTube channel for adult pop culture enthusiasts. Anyone under the age of 13 should only watch this channel with your parents. RetroBlasting is not a children's channel.
Master Mungo, hurry! We're lifting off! Stop that ship! Whoa!
The fans are doing the best work. I keep saying it, and it keeps happening. And there's no better example of this than a grouping of action figures that I was able to put together without having to go through any kind of vintage hunt. I didn't have to customize them myself with Sculpey and brushes and model paint. There are literally people out there right now doing this and doing it extremely well. So you might remember a few years ago, I did a review of Star Wars Droids. And I talked about the toys, but I didn't do a part 2 on them. I didn't have any of the toys to talk about, not because I just hadn't gone and gotten them, because I didn't want them. And you might recall that the reason I didn't want them is because all of the heroes in that show looked weird with dumb 80s punk hair, and the enemies, as I said, quote, looked like boogers, and they just missed the mark on the entire property. Kenner really whiffed on that one. And so as a kid, I didn't buy into it. I do have the A-Wing, of course, but that, like I said, is more or less a Power of the Force toy. It's not really a Droids toy. They had a second wave, which I mentioned, and the second wave was gonna have all the characters that I would have wanted. It would have had Mungo Baobab, it would have had Screed, it would have had the real villains of the show. It was just a better wave overall, and they didn't put that wave out because the first wave failed so badly. Why do it? And of course the show limped along and didn't do well. I grew up watching the special, the TV special called The Great Heep. I had that on video cassette, and it was really the only thing I saw after the original 2-parter with the White Witch and Thal Jobin and those characters, because I just stopped watching the episodic show because it didn't have any characters I liked. And then when I saw Mungo Baobab in the Great Heep, I was like, oh, well, this actually feels a little bit more on point as a science fiction Star Wars adventure. It has stormtroopers in it, and it has an evil Imperial officer, and it has this big Jabba the Hutt-like villain in it, the Great Heep. Mungo was a much more relatable hero to me as far as the way he was presented. You know, he had a ponytail, but at least his hair wasn't like shaved halfway off his head and, you know, some crazy color. As a kid, that really threw me off. I was like, that looks like characters in a modern teenage comedy movie. They don't look like characters that a 7-year-old can relate to. So I found out as an adult about the unreleased wave that would have had Mungo in it and Screed, and that was really disappointing because it was like, well, I would have wanted to buy those. I might not have moved on to Mask so quickly if they had come out with those, but they didn't. But Procustomfigures took it upon themselves to bring out the various characters in the lost wave of droids, and they are not handmade customs, they are manufactured customs, and they are awesome. And as I said, I'm not very interested in the entire run. I only wanted the characters that were in the Great Heep. So I bought Mungo and I bought Screed. And I thought, you know, that'll be good enough for me. And the quality on these figures is excellent. I mean, it is like buying a Kenner figure from 35 years ago. It's really amazing. The thing about Pro Customs, and it's the only con in the whole thing, everything about Pro Customs is a pro except the price. It seems to me that Pro Customs figures do run a little more expensive than other fan-made action figures do. You can't deny the quality, but it was $80 to get Mungo and $80 to get Screed, and that is steep, I will admit. However, because I wasn't after the entire run that they were offering, I was only, you know, cherry picking the ones I wanted, I felt like it was a little more doable. Since I don't really have a lot of reverence for the Droids line as far as it being vintage Kenner, and I just wanted a 3PO and an R2 to go with my Mungo and Screed, Stan Solo is the group that makes the C-3PO, and they do it exactly the same way that Kenner did it. It comes in the multiple primary colors. He comes apart just like he did in the 80s. He's just a redeco of the removable limb C-3PO as the original Kenner one was. And they offer it in a card-backed version as well, which is pretty neat, which I was able to pick up. Now, the R2-D2, the cool thing about Stan Solo is that Stan Solo offers the third leg that can go in the vintage R2-D2, specifically the pop-up lightsaber style R2-D2. That's important. That leg won't work with other vintage R2s. The R2-D2 pop-up lightsaber had a different design to its undercarriage than the standard R2s. So that third leg is designed to work with pop-up style R2s, which the Droids one was. The Droids R2-D2 was just a redeco of the pop-up lightsaber R2-D2. Pro Customs was also offering another figure. They offer various versions of the rocket firing Boba Fett. Now, that Holy Grail has not been something that has really enticed me. I've never had a dream to own a rocket firing Boba Fett original prototype of any kind. It wasn't something that was ever offered to us as kids after it was canceled. However, when I saw one of the variants that Pro Customs was offering, and for whatever reason, maybe it's because they make them in higher volumes, their Boba Fetts are less expensive than their Droids Wave 2 figures. So if you are interested in an affordable Boba Fett, you should check Pro Customs out for sure. But they had a version of the rocket firing Boba Fett that was done up in the holiday special animation design. Because if you recall, the Droids Boba Fett was just the vintage Kenner Boba Fett recarded on a Droids card. Otherwise, he was in the same paint app that he had for, by that point, 6 years. So he was not differentiated in any way from the movie version figure. He was the movie version figure on a Droids card. However, because Nelvana was the studio that had animated the holiday special and also animated the Droids television show, when I saw that Pro Customs was offering a holiday special style Boba Fett with a rocket firing feature no less, I thought, I gotta have that because that would go really well with the Droids grouping. So I ordered that from them as well. And it showed up, and it looks just like the Kenner one in sculpt and everything. It's just professionally painted in a different deco. So it looks like the holiday special. He comes with his original blaster, and he comes with a redesigned rocket that is meant to look, I think, more like the Nelvana animation. There is one drawback to my particular Boba Fett. I don't know if this is a common issue amongst all of them, but my particular Boba Fett, his head doesn't turn very well. I tried to use a heat gun to get it to move a little bit. I was finally able to get his head looking straight ahead, but then after that, I didn't want to mess with it because that head joint was not popping. It was not giving up its stuck position inside the body. And if you're not careful, what you end up doing is just twisting the plastic of the joint rather than the joint spinning, and you can rip the head off of a toy. You start to know that feel pretty well with plastic action figures, and I was feeling like, oh, okay, this joint isn't going to give up, so I'm just going to use the heat gun to get it in the right position and then leave it alone. But I think that might be limited to just my particular example. I seriously doubt, given the quality of Mungo and Screed, that all the Boba Fetts that they've made are like that. It's probably just a manufacturing error on mine. But I only need him to look forward anyway, which is fine. His head does turn. It's just rather grumpy about turning, and it only turns so far, and then it's like, no, I'm done. It is really thrilling to know that there are fans out there making these kinds of efforts, and to know that they're making them at a level of quality where you can tell they want the Kenner experience again too. They don't want to fake it. They want to make it, and they're doing it. And they're doing it with things that we thought we would never have, that we thought we would never acquire. I'm really thrilled with the fact that I now have my Great Heep grouping of these 4 characters, and I didn't have to remortgage my house to get them. I know there's people who worship at the altar of vintage values, But that gets back to the whole thing of what are you in the toy game for? And I'm in the toy game for enjoyment and community and support. I am not in it for speculative value and worshiping golden calves. And I'm not going to do that. These are brilliantly made, and having that variant of Boba Fett from the holiday special is a real icing on this cake, because it is in no way, something that can be passed off as one of 6 or 7 or 20 or whatever it is original rocket firing Fetts. In that respect, I can see, why concern might be valid, because rocket firing Fetts they're no longer traded at toy shows. Those things are traded in lawyers' offices and stuff with contracts signed and things like that. I mean, that's the level to which you have to spend money to get one of those. And so because I had no interest in a facsimile of those original prototypes, I felt very comfortable getting a completely custom holiday special Fett with a completely different rocket and a different paint app and everything. And he's so well done and so unique to the Nelvana era of Star Wars animation, especially that really psyched me up. I was like, something new, something different, So I'm thrilled with these. The fans are doing the best work, and maybe one day I'll see a Great Heep that comes with a droid that goes in his mouth. Maybe one day, who knows? Fingers crossed. But yeah, I just wanted to show you these. I'm really thrilled with them. I haven't figured out where they're going to go in my Star Wars display yet, but I'll find a special place for them. I mean, I have a custom Acmina from the holiday special that was generously donated a few years ago to the collection. Maybe I'll put Boba Fett next to her in the cantina or something like that, although that would clash with the movie figures. I'll have to think on it. In the meantime, I hope you guys are staying safe, and I'll see you on the next video.